My sister's wedding was picture perfect until my husband urged, "We need to go, now." When I demanded answers, he said, "Wait for the car." In the quiet drive home, he muttered, "You didn't see it?" The true intent behind that wedding was... The rain came down in sheets, a relentless Seattle deluge that turned the streets into rivers and smeared the neon lights of the city into a kaleidoscope of warning. I stood in the grand foyer of the Fairmont Hotel, my crimson dress clinging to my skin, the weight of the fabric as heavy as the dread pooling in my gut. Above me, the chandeliers, massive, glittering beasts of crystal and gold, swayed ever so slightly, their prisms catching the storm's lightning in jagged flashes. Then it happened. A deafening crack split the air, and one of those chandeliers tore free from its moorings, plummeting toward the marble floor where guests mingled, oblivious, their champagne flutes raised in carefree toasts. I lunged forward, shoving a stranger out of the way as the crystal beast shattered into a million shards, spraying glass like shrapnel. Screams erupted, and the world slowed to a heartbeat's pulse. My training kicked in. Former FBI, now private investigator. I'd seen chaos before, but this felt personal, like the storm itself was trying to send me a message. My name is Emily Harper, and tonight was supposed to be about my sister Sophia's wedding to Ethan Carter, a tech mogul with a smile too perfect for my liking. But as I knelt amid the wreckage, glass crunching under my heels, I knew this wasn't an accident. The chandelier's cables were cut clean, not frayed, and the hotel's security cameras blinked offline just before the crash. Someone wanted blood, and I had a sinking feeling I was the target. I brushed a shard from my dress, the crimson fabric Sophia had insisted I wear. "It brings out your strength, Em," she'd said with that dazzling smile of hers. Strength. I'd needed plenty of it over the years, especially after our father's death 3 years ago, in a car crash the police called an accident, but I'd never believed was. Sophia had always been the golden child, the one who lit up rooms while I lurked in the shadows, analyzing, doubting, surviving. Now as I stood in the foyer, my husband Liam's hand found my shoulder, his paramedic's grip steady, but his eyes betraying a flicker of fear. "You okay, Em?" he asked, his voice low, the kind of calm he used on trauma victims. I nodded, but my mind was already racing, replaying the chandelier's fall, the screams, the way the storm seemed to roar in approval. Liam, rugged from years of saving lives, looked out of place in his tailored suit, like a soldier dressed for a parade. We'd been married 15 years, our love forged in quiet moments between his shifts and my cases, a partnership that didn't need words to hold strong. But tonight, his worry was palpable, and I couldn't shake the feeling he knew something I didn't. "What do you think of Ethan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper as we moved toward the bridal suite. Sophia's engagement had been a whirlwind, 6 months from meeting to this lavish wedding, and her history of chasing the wrong men made me wary. Liam hesitated, his jaw tightening. "He's driven, loves her, but..." He trailed off, and that pause was a knife in my chest. Liam wasn't one to hold back unless the truth was dangerous. The bridal suite was a sanctuary of silk and orchids, the air thick with the scent of Sophia's perfume. She stood before a full-length mirror, her gown a masterpiece of crystal embroidery that caught the light like a constellation. Our mother, Catherine, fussed over the hem, her hands trembling slightly, her locket with Dad's photo clutched tight. Sophia turned to me, her smile radiant, but her eyes. There was something off, a flicker of anxiety I'd been trained to spot. "Em, you look fierce," she said, but her voice carried an edge, like she was performing. I forced a smile, my fingers brushing my purse where, moments earlier, I'd found a venomous spider, red-backed, deadly, slipping out of a slit I hadn't noticed. I'd crushed it with my heel, heart pounding, but I hadn't told anyone, not yet. Someone had been in my room, and the list of suspects was growing. "Sophia, you're stunning," I said, stepping closer, my eyes scanning her for tells. She hugged me, but it felt rehearsed, her arms too stiff. Catherine joined us, and for a moment we were three women bound by loss. Our father's absence a ghost in the room. His death had changed us. Sophia had thrown herself into fame, building a social media empire, while I'd buried myself in work, chasing truths others ignored. Catherine's grief was quieter, but her locket said enough. We held hands, the silence heavy, until a knock broke the spell. "Time to move," Liam called, and I caught the urgency in his tone. The grand ballroom was a spectacle. 150 guests under a ceiling of LED lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Orchids cascading from every table. Outside the storm raged, lightning illuminating Seattle's skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. I scanned the crowd. Ethan's tech colleagues, sharp-eyed and whispering. Sophia's influencer friends, all filters and facades, and a few faces I couldn't place. Their gazes lingering too long. Catherine sat in the front row, her locket gleaming, her eyes wet with tears she didn't bother to hide. I took my seat beside Liam, my senses on high alert, when a text buzzed my phone. "You're next, if you dig deeper." No sender, no trace. My blood ran cold, but I slipped the phone away, my face a mask. The ceremony began. Ethan at the altar, his charisma undeniable, but his eyes darting to a shadowy figure in the back row. I followed his gaze, but the figure vanished into the crowd. Sophia entered, arm in arm with Catherine, her gown glowing, but her smile faltered when she saw me. Was it guilt? Fear? The minister's words were drowned by a power flicker, the room plunging into darkness for a heartbeat before the lights surged back. Murmurs rippled through the guests, but I was focused on Sophia, her hands trembling as she joined Ethan. I remembered her childhood, dressing up in mom's heels, dreaming of fame. Now, engaged to a tech mogul, she seemed to have it all. But at what cost? The vows were exchanged, Ethan's voice cracking, Sophia's hands shaking as she slid the ring onto his finger. Their kiss sparked applause, but Sophia's eyes avoided mine, and I felt a chill. At the cocktail hour, I sipped a martini, only to catch a bitter undertone. Sedative, I was sure. I spat it out, my heart racing, and scanned the room. A waiter watched me, then slipped into the kitchen. I followed, but he was gone, leaving only whispers of the chandelier incident in the air. Liam pulled me aside, his face pale. "Em? I saw Sophia with the chef. She was pointing at your plate." My world tilted. Sophia, my sister, the one I'd protected through heartbreak and scandal, was trying to kill me. For what? Our father's estate, $10 million, 0 cents, 80% to me, 20% to her, with a clause, if I died, she'd get it all. I thought of the spider, the text, the chandelier. This was no accident. It was a conspiracy, and I was running out of time to unravel it. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one brewing in my chest. I stood in the Fairmont's gilded elevator, Liam beside me, his silence louder than the thunder. We'd slipped away from the cocktail hour, my mind a tangle of betrayal and survival. Sophia, my little sister, the girl who'd once cried in my arms after a bad breakup, had pointed at my plate. Liam's words echoed, each syllable a hammer against the trust I'd built over years. "She was deliberate, Em," he'd said, his paramedics calm, fraying at the edges. I saw her hand the chef a vial. It wasn't seasoning. My fingers tightened around my purse, the memory of that red-backed spider, its legs twitching before I crushed it, making my skin crawl. Someone had slipped it into my bag, someone who knew I'd reach for my phone, my keys, my lifeline. And now, a poisoned drink, a cut chandelier cable, and a sister who wouldn't meet my eyes. I was a former FBI agent, trained to read lies in a glance, but I'd missed the ones closest to me. The elevator dinged, and we stepped into the parking garage. The the air damp and heavy with the scent of oil and rain. Liam's hand grazed mine, a silent anchor, but his face was grim, the kind of look he wore when a patient's pulse was fading. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice low. "Now!" I nodded, but my legs felt like lead, each step pulling me deeper into a nightmare. My phone buzzed again, another anonymous text. "Stop digging, or Liam's next." I froze, my breath catching. Liam noticed, his eyes narrowing. "What is it?" I showed him the screen, and his jaw clenched, the muscle ticking like a countdown. "They're watching us," he said, scanning the shadows. The garage was a maze of concrete pillars and flickering lights, every corner a potential trap. We reached our car, a black SUV that had seen us through countless late-night stakeouts and quiet drives along the coast. Liam slid into the driver's seat, but I hesitated, my instincts screaming. "Wait," I said, kneeling to check the undercarriage. My fingers brushed something cold. A wire, spliced and frayed, leading to the brake line. Sabotaged. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Liam, get out, now!" He didn't argue, his paramedic training kicking in as we backed away. A second later, a spark flared under the hood, and the car lurched forward, crashing into a pillar. The explosion was small, contained, but the message was clear. Someone wanted us dead, and they weren't stopping. We ran, my heels abandoned, the cold concrete biting my feet. Liam pulled me behind a van, his arm a shield as we crouched, listening for footsteps. "This is bigger than Sophia," he whispered. "She's not working alone." I nodded, my mind racing, through the faces at the wedding, Ethan's CFO, his shifty eyes, the shadowy figure in the back row, the waiter who'd fled, and then there was Ethan himself, the tech mogul with the failing startup, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sophia's engagement had been too fast, too perfect, and now I wondered if she'd been a pawn or a predator. "Let's get to my office," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. My PI firm was a few blocks away, a fortress of files and firewalls, where I could dig into the texts, the estate, the truth. Liam nodded, but his eyes flicked to the garage exit where headlights flared. A black sedan idled, its driver obscured, the engine's hum a low growl. "They're here," he said, pulling me toward a stairwell. We slipped inside, the door slamming shut as tires screeched behind us. My pulse thundered, but I forced myself to focus. I'd faced cartels, corrupt cops, and killers in my FBI days. I could handle this. I had to. The stairwell was a spiral of echoes, our footsteps ringing as we climbed. At the third floor, the door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling through. I signaled Liam to stop, my hand brushing the concealed Glock in my thigh holster, old habits from my bureau days. Peering through the crack, I saw a figure in a maintenance uniform, his back to us, tampering with a control panel, the hotel's power grid. Another flicker, another blackout, another chance to strike. I eased the door open, silent, and crept forward, but my dress caught on a hinge, the fabric tearing with a sound like a gunshot. The figure spun, his face masked, and bolted down the hall. I gave chase, Liam behind me, but the man vanished into a service corridor, leaving only a dropped keycard. Fairmont staff, restricted access. We didn't stop to analyze it. The corridor led to a balcony overlooking the ballroom, and as I stepped out, the railing gave way, metal screeching as I plummeted toward the 3-story drop below. Liam's hand caught my wrist, his strength the only thing between me and the marble floor. "I've got you," he grunted, pulling me up, his face etched with fear. My heart pounded, but I scanned the balcony's supports. Bolts loosened, deliberately. This was no accident. Just like the chandelier, the spider, the car. Someone had planned this, and they knew my every move. Back in the corridor, we found a service elevator and took it to the street, emerging into the storm's fury. Rain lashed my face as we sprinted toward my office, the city a blur of lights and shadows. My mind churned. Sophia's vial, the texts, the estate. Our father's will had been a sore point. $10 million, 0 cents. 80% to me for the years I'd cared for him through his illness. 20% to Sophia, who'd been too busy building her brand to visit. If I died, she'd get it all. Enough to bail out Ethan's sinking startup. But was she desperate enough to kill? And who was helping her? My office was a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and steel, with a server room that could rival the FBI's. I locked the door behind us, my hands shaking as I powered up my system. Liam stood guard, his eyes on the street below, where the black sedan had reappeared, circling like a shark. I hacked into the hotel's security feed, pulling footage from the chandelier crash. There it was, a figure in a hoodie, cutting the cables, their face obscured. Another clip showed Sophia with the chef, her gestures sharp, the vial glinting in her hand. My stomach twisted, but I kept digging, cross-referencing Ethan's financials. His startup was hemorrhaging cash, debts piling up, investors pulling out. Sophia's inheritance was his lifeline, and mine was the obstacle. Another text buzzed. Your father didn't crash. Ask Sophia. My breath caught. Dad's death, the screech of tires, the police report that never added up. I'd suspected foul play, but Sophia? She'd been in Paris that week, or so she'd said. I pulled her travel records, my fingers flying over the keys. No flights to Paris, just a hotel in Tacoma, 30 miles from the crash site. My vision blurred, tears mixing with rain on my face. My sister, my blood, had been lying for years. Liam's voice broke through. Em, we've got company. I looked up to see the sedan's doors open, 3 figures stepping out, their silhouettes armed. My office was secure, but not impregnable. I grabbed my Glock, checked the clip, and handed Liam a spare from my safe. We hold them off, I said, my voice steel. He nodded, his paramedics calm, now a soldier's resolve. The storm outside roared, but inside a different battle was beginning. One for truth, for survival, for the sister I thought I knew. As the first figure breached the door, I realized this wedding wasn't just a celebration. It was a trap, and I'd walked right into it. But I was Emily Harper, and I didn't go down without a fight. The rain hadn't let up, hammering Seattle's streets as if the city itself were trying to drown its secrets. I stood in the Fairmont Hotel's glass-walled ballroom, the skyline a jagged silhouette against the storm's wrath. My crimson dress now a stark reminder of the blood I'd narrowly avoided spilling. The reception was in full swing, 150 guests swirling around me like actors in a play I hadn't rehearsed for. My sister Sophia, radiant in her reception gown, clung to Ethan Carter's arm, her smile a perfect mask. But I knew better. I'd seen her with the chef, her delicate hand passing a vial, her eyes darting to my seat. My husband Liam's words still burned. She tampered with your food, Em. My nut allergy, a near-fatal weakness from years ago, was her weapon, and the $10 million 0 cents estate, 80% mine, 20% hers, was her motive. If I died, she'd get it all, enough to save Ethan's crumbling tech empire. But I wasn't just a sister betrayed. I was Emily Harper, ex-FBI, private investigator, and I'd be damned if I let her win. The ballroom buzzed with chatter, but I was hyper-focused, my senses sharpened by the threats piling up. A chandelier crash, a venomous spider, a sabotaged balcony, and now this. I slipped through the crowd, my heels clicking on the polished floor, and caught a snippet of conversation that stopped me cold. Ethan's CFO, a wiry man with shark-like eyes, leaned toward a suit at the bar. The deal hinges on Sophia's inheritance, he muttered, his voice low but not low enough. If the estate clears, we're golden. My blood chilled. Inheritance meant my share, my life. I edged closer, pretending to adjust my dress, but the CFO's gaze flicked to me and he clammed up. His drink suddenly fascinating. Red flag number 1. Liam appeared at my side, his paramedic's calm a stark contrast to the storm in my chest. "You hear that?" I whispered, nodding toward the CFO. He frowned, his rugged face tightening. "Yeah? And there's more. Ethan's mother, Vivian, she's a venture capitalist, calls Sophia a strategic asset. Told me at the bar like it was a compliment. Strategic asset. The phrase hit like a slap. Sophia wasn't just Ethan's bride, she was his lifeline. Her inheritance the key to his survival. I scanned the room for Vivian, spotting her in a sleek black gown, her smile as sharp as broken glass. She raised a flute to Sophia, but her eyes were calculating, predatory. Red flag number 2. The VIP table was a pressure cooker, every smile a lie. I sat beside Liam, our mother Catherine across from us, her fingers tracing the locket with Dad's photo, her grief a quiet ache. Ethan's parents, polished and aloof, traded pleasantries, but the air was thick with unspoken tensions. Sophia and Ethan made their grand entrance, the crowd erupting in applause. But Ethan's speech set my nerves on edge. "Sophia's my everything," he said, his voice smooth, practiced. "But love demands sacrifices, and we're ready to pay them for our future." Sacrifices. The word hung like a guillotine, and Sophia's smile faltered, her eyes flicking to me for a split second. Was it guilt, fear, or something colder? Sophia took the mic next, her voice honeyed but hollow. "Thank you, Mom, Emily, for making this day perfect." She paused, and the omission hit like a punch. No mention of Dad, the man who'd shaped us, whose suspicious car crash 3 years ago still haunted me. Catherine's hand froze on her locket, and Liam's grip tightened on my arm. Why skip Dad? Was it shame, or was she hiding something? My investigator's mind churned, piecing together the puzzle, the vial, the inheritance, Dad's death. Sophia was unraveling, and I was the thread she couldn't afford to pull. A guest brushed past, his hand grazing mine, and I felt something cold and metallic slip into my palm. A USB drive, its label scratched but legible. Harper Estate. My pulse spiked. I pocketed it, my eyes scanning the crowd, but the guest, a nondescript man in a gray suit, melted into the throng. Who was he? Ally or enemy? The drive burned a hole in my pocket, its secrets locked behind encryption I'd need to crack. Pressure point 1, and the stakes were climbing. The champagne toast was next, the room rising with flutes aloft, but a distant explosion rocked the hotel, the windows rattling as gasps rippled through the crowd. "Gas leak," a waiter announced, his voice too calm, too rehearsed. I didn't buy it. Gas leaks didn't time themselves to toasts, didn't follow chandeliers and spiders. Liam's eyes met mine, his paramedic instincts mirroring my own. This was sabotage, and we were still in the crosshairs. The menu arrived, a decadent spread of crab bisque, truffle risotto, and Wagyu beef, curated by Ethan's Michelin-starred chef. But I couldn't eat, not after what Liam saw. The table talk turned to Ethan's startup, his father letting slip it was days from bankruptcy without a cash infusion. My inheritance, my life, was their salvation. Then it happened. A spotlight above my seat groaned, metal snapping, and it crashed down, missing me by inches as I dove under the table. Glass shattered, guests screamed, and Liam pulled me to my feet, his face pale but focused. "That was meant for you," he hissed, his eyes locking on a waiter who'd frozen, his tray trembling. The waiter bolted and I gave chase, my dress tearing as I sprinted through the kitchen. He tripped, a vial clattering to the floor. Labeled cyanide. My heart stopped. Not just nuts, not just allergies. Sophia was playing for keeps, and cyanide was a killer's choice. Back in the ballroom, my phone buzzed, the screen flickering to a live feed of my home's security cameras. My living room, my bedroom, my safe. Someone had hacked me, watching my every move. I killed the feed, but the violation lingered, my skin crawling. Liam grabbed my arm. "We're leaving, Em, now." His voice was steel, but I resisted, torn between loyalty to Sophia and the truth screaming in my gut. She'd tampered with my food, poisoned my life, but she was my sister. Could I abandon her? "I need answers," I said, my voice cracking. Liam's eyes softened, but his grip didn't. "Answers won't help if you're dead." We slipped out, but a guest noticed, whispering to Sophia, who turned and glared, her face a mask of fury. In the parking garage, Liam's words hit like a freight train. "It was powder, Em. I saw her pour it into your bisque." My knees buckled. Sophia, my protector through childhood scrapes, my confidant through heartbreak, was trying to kill me. For money. For Ethan. For a life I'd never understand. We reached our car, but I checked it again, my FBI training overriding panic. The brakes were cut, wires dangling. We climbed in, but as we sped down a steep hill, the pedal went soft, and Liam swerved into a ditch, the SUV skidding to a stop, inches from a ravine. My chest heaved, the near miss a scream in my throat. Liam pulled documents from his jacket, his hands shaking. "Your father's will," he said. "You get 80%, Sophia 20%. If you die, she takes everything. $10 million, 0 cents. I stared at the pages, the numbers blurring. Sophia's plan was clear. My death would fund Ethan's startup, save his empire, secure her future. But why? She'd always had everything: fame, friends, freedom. Why this? A burner phone in the glove box rang, a distorted voice hissing. "Drop the investigation, or you're both dead." I smashed the phone, rage overtaking fear. They thought they could scare me? I'd faced worse. We abandoned the car, sprinting through the storm to my office, a fortress of steel and secrets. I hacked the hotel's cameras, pulling footage of Sophia bribing the chef, her emails detailing the murder plot. My heart shattered, but I kept going, pulling Ethan's financials, Sophia's travel records, anything to understand. Then I found it. A police report, buried deep, about Dad's crash. Not an accident. Tampered brakes, just like ours. Sophia had been in Tacoma that day, not Paris. She'd killed him, and now she was coming for me. Ethan confronted us at my office, his face ashen, his suit disheveled. "I didn't know," he sobbed, collapsing into a chair. "Sophia said the money was hers, that you'd agreed to split it. I swear I'd annul this marriage if I could." His tears seemed real, but I didn't trust them. Was he a pawn or a player? I let him talk, recording every word, my Glock within reach. Sophia was arrested that night, the hotel footage and emails damning, but her lawyer claimed coercion by a creditor, a shadowy figure tied to Ethan's debts. Another lie? Or a deeper truth? The final blow came when I cracked the USB drive's encryption. It held Dad's real will, predating the one we knew. He'd left everything to me, citing Sophia's reckless ambition. She'd forged the 80-20 split, killed him to cover it, and now targeted me to finish the job. My knees gave out, tears streaming as Liam held me. But in that pain, I found fire. Sophia had taken Dad, but she wouldn't take me. The night ended with us in a safe house, the storm still raging outside. I looked at Liam, his steady presence my anchor. "We're not just surviving," I said, my voice raw but resolute. "We're fighting, for Dad, for truth, for us." He nodded, his hand squeezing mine. The shadowy figure Ethan glanced at, the USB secrets, Sophia's omission, the hacked cameras, Ethan's role, they were threads in a web I'd unravel. I was Emily Harper, and I'd lost a sister, but gained a purpose. The fight was just beginning, and I'd burn the world down to win.